As the 1940s rolled around in the following years, so too did the threats of World War II. Overall, Latin America was relatively safe from the war, although fears of Nazi influence were still present. During the time, Germany was increasingly expanding its influence in the region through trade deals, along with instances of espionage from Nazi agents. Despite all of this, Colombia and the rest of Latin America would have a powerful ally in the United States, thanks to the US's good neighbor policy, which had been implemented under Franklin Roosevelt back in 1933. This policy promised a non-interventionist approach to foreign relations, meaning that tense affairs with other countries should be solved through civil negotiations such as trade agreements and economic partnerships, rather than harsher approaches such as military intervention. In Latin America, this philosophy would ultimately advance a spirit of collectivist Pan-Americanism, which soon gave way to an increased cultural exchange. In many ways, this policy could be seen as the initial gateway for the surge of interest in Latin American culture throughout the mid-century in the US, along with other Western countries that followed suit. Positive depictions of Latin American culture would soon become prominent across pop culture from Hollywood and US corporations, who brand the region as exotic, yet a cooperative partner in the fight against fascism. The goal of the good neighbor policy overall, though, was to improve diplomatic relations, something which would prove useful when the US would later urge neighboring countries to sever ties with Axis powers and join them in cooperation against the Nazi threat. This was communicated not only on a governmental level, but also via propaganda campaigns spread throughout Latin America. President Eduardo Santos, for one, was sympathetic to the plea. He agreed to cut diplomatic relations with Berlin, acted in ousting Nazi groups, and allowed the US to take security measures within their country wherever necessary. Colombia, meanwhile, would eventually declare war on both Germany and Japan in 1943 after several Colombian schooners were sunken by Nazi forces. Their contribution to the war would primarily involve supplying resources and raw materials such as oil and platinum, and aiding in the protection of the Panama Canal and the Caribbean Sea, often via naval patrol missions. Ultimately, Colombia would make it through relatively unscathed by the war, and even saw some of the highest economic growth on the continent during this time, thanks in part to the hundreds of millions of dollars invested by the US throughout this period, along with a boom in exports, which would experience significant price hikes. A prime example of this was, once again, the US's demand for platinum, of which Colombia was an important supplier. Additionally, many of the country's elite coffee exporters would also experience a surge in profit due to wartime disruptions in other chief coffee-growing countries. The subsequent rise in power among coffee farmers, however, would soon lead to vicious rivalries and corruption. Hostility would grow among farmers over their competing access for land and water, while a widened economic gap between producers and labourers would fuel class tensions.